There's a famous quote from former New York Times restaurant critic Mimi Sheraton about bagels. She says that a good bagel should give your facial muscles a workout. I love that. Not so much because I'm a big workout guy, I'm not. It's because I love chewy foods. Chewy noodles, chewy candy. I even like chewier cuts of beef, like hanger and skirt steak. Chewing is satisfying, and the more that you chew a food, the more you end up tasting it. When it comes to breads, bagels are in a chewiness league all their own. A lot of that chew comes down to gluten. Bagels are a tribute to the amazing chewy powers of gluten. They say the best bagels come from New York City, the Big Bagel. But right here in Boston, we're gonna get to the bottom of all of it. So let's do this. One of the keys to those nice, super chewy bagels you get in New York is the type of flour they use to make them. Most bakeries use what is called high gluten flour, which has a really high protein content, usually between 14 and 15%. That protein comes together in the presence of water to form gluten. Now, for comparison's sake, all-purpose flour usually is in the range of 10 to 12% protein. Bread flour, which is used for chewy rustic breads, is often in the 12 to 14% range. And cake flour goes in the opposite direction. It's used for making really tender baked goods and has a protein content of 6 to 8%. You can't generally find high gluten flour in the supermarket, but you can find something called vital wheat gluten, which just sounds like something you can't live without. Now, I know a lot of people have to live without gluten, and I feel very, very sorry for them. Vital wheat gluten is essentially pure dehydrated gluten. You can pick it up at the supermarket and add it to any bread dough recipe along with the dry ingredients. It's going to be key to making our bagels nice and chewy. The next key to a dense, chewy bagel is to keep the hydration level really low. Bagel dough contains less water than most breads, usually in the 50 to 55% hydration range versus 60 to 70% for most loaf breads. Take a look at a bagel dough that is 50% hydrated, and take a look at that same dough at 70% hydration and 90% hydration. You can see big differences in consistency. With less water in the mix, bagel dough is very stiff, and that helps it bake up dense and chewy. But this is an awful lot of information when we really know that the key to a great New York bagel is New York water. There's something special about the water in New York City that helps bake really chewy bagels, right? If only there was a way to put that theory to the test. Like say if I worked with an amazing science editor named Paul Adams who lived in New York and could ship me water from his apartment. Oh wait, I do, and he did. I've got Paul's water here from New York City and a sample of Boston water that I took off the tap for a little taste test. Well, these are both really tasty waters. I think in order to figure out how they will impact bagel making, I'm gonna have to get a little bit nerdier. Let's go to the kitchen. Okay, so one factor that could have a big impact on dough texture is pH. So let's use our trusty pH meter to measure both waters. There's evidence that gluten forms best when a dough is in the range of 5 to 6 on the pH scale. Whoa, this New York water might actually have an advantage. It registers about 6.4 on the pH meter, whereas the Boston water registers 9. That's a huge difference. It turns out that the city of Boston adjusts its water in order to achieve this high pH. And New York City water can vary quite a bit, from the low 6s to the low 8s. So I also sent samples of these waters to an independent lab to test for a couple other attributes I thought might impact dough texture, including chlorine level and mineral content. On those measures, the waters were nearly identical. Numbers are great, but honestly, the only way we're gonna know if any of this makes a difference is to make bagels with both waters and taste them blind. I'm going to make 2 identical batches of dough, varying only the water in each. I'll be using Cooks Illustrated senior editor Andrew Janjigian's recipe, by the way. We've got our bread flour, vital wheat gluten, and yeast. And that goes into our food processor. Bagels are traditionally cold fermented overnight, so we're gonna start with ice water. We're also gonna add some malt syrup. Now, you usually find the malt syrup in the boil, but we're gonna add it right into the dough. We really like that flavor. Now I'm gonna let this dough sit for about 10 minutes. This step is called an autolyse, and despite the fact that we're not doing anything to the dough, stuff is happening. The flour is hydrating and gluten strands are beginning to form. This dough will require less kneading to come together. Then we add our salt and we let this thing rip for just 90 seconds. The violent action of that food processor will develop tons of gluten really, really quickly. Now, everything we do to manipulate this dough will have an impact on how chewy and tough that gluten is. These dough balls have rested for 15 minutes and now it's time for shaping. So I could simply just punch a hole in the middle of it. That looks like a bagel, right? But there's a more traditional way to do it that manipulates the dough a lot more. So all I'm basically doing is rolling this out into a nice 5-inch round and then rolling it back up into a nice tight cylinder. I'm gonna use my hands to twist it, and that's gonna get that gluten going really nicely. And then I simply roll it around my hand, pinch it, and give it a little roll to reconnect it. As you can see, it looks like a beautiful bagel, and we've really worked that gluten. That might look a little bit complicated, but it's actually pretty easy to perform, and we'll find out soon whether it's worth it. After an hour on the counter, these guys will hang out in the fridge overnight. Now, if you remember when we talked about pizza, cold fermentation limited CO2 production. The dough that hung out on the counter for about an hour had really big bubbles, while the one that was in the fridge overnight had really tiny ones. Big bubbles are especially bad for bagels. We want these guys to remain nice and dense and chewy. Oh, and you'll also remember that cold fermentation allowed the yeast plenty of time to produce tons of great flavor. And that's an important thing. A bagel should be a flavorful and delicious thing before you add cream cheese and red onion and lox and capers and black pepper. Well, that does sound really good. When it comes time to bake, bagels also go off script from most breads. Classic New York bagels are boiled before baking, which sounds strange but serves a couple of important functions. It warms the dough so they spring better in the oven, but more importantly, it hydrates and gels the starch on the surface of the bagel. When that gel is exposed to the high heat of the oven, it dries out, leaving tiny crispy bubbles all over the surface of the bagel. Take a close look. Those tiny crispy bubbles greatly increase the surface area of the bagel. And that porous structure is what we in the biz call crispy. Wait, that's exactly what I said in the wing video about crispy skin and crispy batter, is what we in the biz call crispy, because that's just how crispy works. Here is a really sad store-bought bagel for comparison. It is smooth and shiny all over. Smooth and shiny, great for a bowling ball. Really bad for a bagel. After the boil, we bake, and now it's finally time to settle this once and for all. First, let's try a bagel that I just punched a hole in the middle of. All right, so it's not bad. It's got decent chew, but not facial workout chew. Okay, now for one of these old school shaped bagels. Oh man, that is good chew. But don't take my word for it. Just listen to my buddy Andrew Rea, AKA Babish.
Let's start with this bagel.
All right.
I can already tell that this is the punch bagel.
You can?
It's softer. Bread here doesn't have as much chew to it.
Oh, look at that. It's almost it. You know that's chewy. That's real chew.
Distinctively chewier. This is totally the old one.
Okay, now the moment that we've all been waiting for. Boston water bagels versus New York water bagels. Blind tasting. And the final verdict? Honestly, I could not tell the difference between the two. And quite frankly, none of my colleagues could either. So if you want crispy on the outside, super chewy on the inside, insanely flavorful bagels, you don't have to go to New York. Or have someone ship you water from New York. Thanks again, Paul. Just stay home and make them yourself. Then you can read a book, watch some 80s movies, play with your cat. All right, taste tests are done. It's time to eat. I like mine with a smear of cream cheese. And this is how to eat a bagel. Believe it or not, that was the last episode of season 1. I want to thank you all so much for watching and supporting. Let me know in the comments what other foods you want me to cover, and stay tuned because I'll be back soon with season 2.